What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome to the first edition of the Sunday Open with me, Nick4aTick, here on NinjaTrader Live. How's everyone doing? How was everyone's weekend? I don't know about you guys. I needed a few days off after the last few sessions, the last few weeks, even. I mean, this has been not the simplest market to trade, if I do say so myself. After doing this for a number of years and doing this completely full time, last week was not necessarily one of my worst weeks by any means, but just a week I had trouble kind of getting things off the ground, more or less. And that can happen, I guess, when you're in this game every single day and you're trying different things, you're trying different strategies, and the market's just going to do what the market does. So it's good for you guys all to be here. If you don't know who I am Nick4aTick. I'm just a trader like you guys, like most people at the end of the day that are doing this day in and day out. I'm not the best trader out there in the world. I'm just a regular guy having fun with my friends, trading every day, having some laughs, trying to make some money, trying to survive in this chaotic market that we are currently in. So if you've never seen me do Sunday prep before, welcome. This will be probably a work in progress in the way of, like, I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you are looking to continue to get out of this show on Sunday nights. If you've never seen me prep, I keep it pretty light. I try not to get too crazy, too in the weeds, prepare for too many things, because I think that just gets you into trouble. What this show is going to be is kind of like that zoomed out look for really the four main products that I think a lot of us are trading. Obviously, there's going to be some outliers for probably some of you out there in the space, but for the most part, I feel like 95% of traders that I interact with every day are trading ES, are trading NQ, are trading Crude, and are trading gold. There are, like I said, maybe some outliers out there. I mean, I've even been known to sleen the lean hogs here and there. So we'll talk about things when they make sense to, when markets are moving, when volatility events are happening. I'm happy to throw on another chart, take a look at something else, and talk about things that are moving and potentially some opportunities that could make everybody some money. So what we're going to do tonight, as I said, we'll keep it light, but for the most part, we're going to go through a light prep of those four futures products. So ES, NQ, CL, and GC. I will give you my rough perspective. As you guys have probably known, if you've seen me ever do this on a Sunday night, Crude, GC, I mean, I'll give you my perspective, but I may not actively trade it during this upcoming trading week. So yeah, we'll go to the charts here in a few minutes, but I want to hear from everybody. How did everyone kind of navigate this last week? As I had said, not my best, not the easiest market to navigate. I did my best out there. I really feel like I left a lot of money on the table. I made some mistakes, but that's kind of what I think a good trader does. I was red Monday, red Tuesday, and decided on Wednesday, I'm pretty much going to hang it up for the week and keep things relatively small until I, feel more confident in my setups, or just need to take my foot off the gas for a couple sessions and just kind of reflect, and then come back fresh mind into this week and see how it goes. That's always how I've kind of navigated my trading sessions, my trading weeks. When you're coming off a red week, I tend to keep it light, keep it a little smaller, just try to get that confidence back. Because I wouldn't even say I missed trades. I just executed. The pressing button side of the mental game is equally as challenging as even learning kind of what we're doing. So let's take a look at some of the charts. All right. So to give you guys a perspective, I spent the better part of last week setting up my prep charts on NinjaTrader so that we could get a decent look at the way that I typically prep, which is going to be looking at things from a little bit more zoomed out view. We'll look at things in this case on a 1 hour chart. And if you've ever seen me prep before, I like to build weekly volume profiles so that everybody can see it. So a little bit of dissection of my chart here. You'll see some MGI levels, like the previous week's high, low, value area highs, value area lows, some monthly market generated information as well. But also just to keep me honest and help it be a little more visual for you guys too, I've also kind of highlighted the value areas. So that'll be these little blue lines that you'll see on the chart as well. And that's funny. No, it's up there. I was going to say, did my pivot? I was trying to bring that back too. That was just something that I do to kind of give you guys a perspective of where I'm looking at things with a little more long bias versus short bias. Still wanted to include that as we're going through this here. But what we have here are the 1 hour candles, looking at the multi-week structure, and specifically kind of talking about, just to kick things off here with ES. We had that violent move going back to the beginning of the month in April with our, whatever you want to call, Liberation Day. And then we moved into the following week. Excuse me. Sorry, I make myself laugh when I say Liberation Day every time. And then naturally we came into the good time to buy day back on April 9th. And then ever since then, we were pretty much just balancing in a multi-week range, stuck in this wider, good time to buy candle is what I was calling it for the last couple of weeks on the show. And I'm not even convinced just yet that the bloodshed could be over, or that this multi-week balance could be over. It's kind of do or die time, at least in the shorter time frame for those buyers. They pushed us all the way to the top of that range, the top of that good time to buy day candle. And you would like to see them accelerate into the early parts of this week. So looking at this, I want to see us, honest to God, get a little more, get structure building from the buy side a little bit higher. So zooming out just slightly here, kind of where when we got all the original downside from when we had the move off all-time highs and all the tariff news, like we started balancing off that near-term low at the end, or I guess the middle of March, right around where we closed last week. So for me to get super bullish and say, yeah, the lows for at least until new information with the administration and everything going on with the tariff war and the trade war, until we can kind of get that volume build, honest to God, above kind of where I put my pivot, I want to see us back into this balance range before I'm really looking to say, outside of like short-term scalps, my short bias, if I had it at all, is kind of gone outside of like that small time frame intraday, just rotational moves to the downside. I'm really looking, if we can get above where we opened even for April with some velocity from buyers. I'm more looking for dips to buy intraday than I am looking for rotational moves back down. I would expect if we did get above that, you may see more and more buyers kind of stepping in, that like I said, the bloodshed may be over, and we may get that kind of oomph that we need to kick off maybe that bullish summer that we're all very much accustomed to. It's still very early. So for me, like I said, it's hard for me to shake at least the first attempt at us breaking out of this balance range in ES before I'm kind of ready to throw into the towel that some large seller is not going to be present somewhere between kind of the 5,600s all the way up to probably 5,750 at any point. And that's kind of sucks, but I would say like at any point in that 200 point range, I could see a large seller stepping back in and kind of pushing us back down, making a larger time frame reoffer. It still looks like that. If you go back to where we were at all-time highs and kind of selling down, it just seems like the longer time frame sellers are still in this market, and I would love to be proved otherwise. But what we would need to see going into this week and probably even next week is a continued structure building a little bit higher and above that 5,600 strike on SPX, which is basically where I'm putting my pivot for this week. So for me to kind of be looking at this much more with a bullish bias heading into the early parts of summer and into May here in the later part of this week, I want to see buyers step on the gas and really push us above 5,600. But for the time being, I'm a little worried to be the first person to buy it up here, just because I could, like I said, see any seller coming in this general area and reoffering us. And maybe then we get back into this just annoying balance range, maybe go fill the gap from last Wednesday when there was positive tariff news. But I don't know. I really don't have I would say a great edge going into this week on one direction or the other, which is kind of how I trade. I like to take this zoomed out look at all of the different products that I typically do trade, but I try not to get biased one way or the other and really just allow order flow and market generated information to kind of guide my intraday perspective and entries. So take a quick breath there. We are coming in to the open in about 3 or so minutes, and we'll take a pause and watch that together as well. We did see a little bit of negative news come out as I was getting organized and prepped. I did see on Twitter and Financial Juice, it looks like from a geopolitical perspective, North Korea has said they are going to be deploying troops to Russian territory occupied in Ukraine. So I don't know if that's going to lead to a small gap down, but something to keep in mind as we head into the open here in a few minutes, that geopolitical headlines and a tweet storm can come at any time. So it really just comes down to trade what's in front of you, because that headline risk can come in at any moment. So one of the many reasons I don't love trading the Sunday open, I know that's what the show's called, but I don't usually trade Globex. If you even go back to, I don't know, historically my P&L, this is not my favorite time period. It's just never been my most profitable area in the market. So for me, I like to prep during this time, watch the open, see how things shake out as I head into my Monday, and then keep it light from there. Oh, Tracy, thank you for that. Then this is an old headline. Then why do they make it all red and horrifying when they blast that all over Financial Juice? Good to know. That is an older headline, so that may not matter at all to the open here in a few minutes. Good to know. And as I'm going through this, y'all, if there are questions, if there's anything you want me to dive into, one of the things we can try to do, ad hoc as we're going through this over the next few weeks, every time we do this on Sundays, maybe we can find a good time period towards the end of the show where I can just kind of, round robin off some questions that maybe have come in throughout the show. But as I'm doing this, as I said, if there's something that's at the, on the tip of your tongue that you want to ask me, or something about the prep itself or my strategy, the way I trade, whatever it may be, feel free to fire them off. But yeah, so looking at ES this week, as I said, one of the things I'd be looking for is that volume build above those 5600s. But like I said, if we get a reoffer, I would expect us maybe to come down and potentially fill this gap, maybe go retest last week's value area low down here toward 5300s. I'm still kind of operating with this potentially still being in this balance range until proven otherwise. So not exactly the spot I want to initiate, but very much could see, a coin flip here if a larger time frame seller comes in, or if buyers really step on the gas here in the early parts of this week. So that's kind of the gist for ES. And yeah, as I was saying, guys, we'll go through all of these, but I'm going to, let's see, what time is it? I got about a minute, but we'll go to the NQ chart, I guess, to watch the open. I guess we'll do that. Let's see. I lost track of how much time. All right, we got about 20 seconds. There we go. Couldn't see how far we actually were to the open. I didn't have my second by second chart here. Stowe, Nick, do you do any work with your rolling volume profiles for your HTF stuff? I don't know the acronym that you're using. Stowe, if you want to tell me what HTF means. So we did get a small gap down. Actually, let's jump over. Candles are loading. Yeah, we did get a small gap down. I'm on my execution chart just so we could quickly see it here. But some sellers came in. That was not very big. We basically are very close to settlement, but at least a gap down. I was going to ask everybody, give me your prediction too. Are we going to gap up, gap down or open right around settlement. So I guess that answers that question for the time being. So we'll just keep going. Nothing too chaotic out of this open. But yeah, NQ in a very similar story to ES. Breaking potentially, I say potentially breaking out of this multi-week balance since Liberation Day and Good Time to Buy Day. I don't know if someone else has a better suggestion on what we can call this candle. I'm still in the camp of Good Time to Buy Day. So we'll leave it at that. But coming into NQ, like I said, multi-week balance, potentially breaking out to the upside. It's the same exact story that I was talking about on ES. For NQ, I really want to see us basically building volume above 19,800. Me personally, I would really love to see it back up above 20,000 with some enthusiasm for me to get super bullish and say, hey, I think this low is in and we may get that summer March potentially back up to some of these higher areas. I wouldn't be the first person to say we're probably going to go make a new all-time high until there's new information, but I love to be proved wrong in the summer. Historically, July is a month of a lot of pain for me because I try to not necessarily force trades, but I sit there in that slow grind uptrend and just try to slug out points and end up taking so many paper cuts that I'm just wondering why I didn't get a summer job at a pool as a lifeguard or something instead of trying to trade this. So hopefully it is a volatile summer and gives us a good opportunity for a lot of different trades. But for the most part, we could be shaping up for that type of slow grind to be kicking off here in a few weeks. Who knows? But like I said, on NQ, if we can get that volume build, if we can hold above the kind of 19,400 area, I would expect us to fall back into this older balance range between kind of that 20,200 spot all the way down to 19,800s, which is a range I'm going to be watching in the early parts of this week to see, like I said, is there a larger time frame seller still reoffering in that spot? I don't know. Something about this breakout, I just don't trust it yet, I guess is what I'm saying in ES and NQ. There's just been no new information there. I mean, I know we got the there's too many talking heads, I guess. There's a lot of children in the room giving a lot of headlines and statements about the pause on China tariffs, the taking them away, the adjustments to them, the new deals. And then Trump comes out on Friday and saying he's not going to give an inch unless China gives us something. And the market kind of shook that off, but it was a Friday. It was, low volume. We were just kind of drifting up. So how does the market kind of respond to that this week? Or do we get another new headline? I don't know. That's really just something I guess I just keep in the back of my mind. But for me, like I said, I just want to see what happens if we get back up towards the bottom of this old balance range, somewhere near kind of the 19,600s. Again, I know we kind of came up on there on Friday, kissed it, and kind of rotated back down. But for me to get super bullish, like I said, I want to see us clear 20,000s. Yeah, I would agree. The market was kind of complacent last week. It was an interesting week. I don't know. I struggled for some reason with just almost just a straight upward trajectory the whole week. Just could not seem to be on the right side of the direction, no matter if I was long or short throughout the week. So we live, we move forward, and we come back better this week. Oh, Stowe, I wanted to answer your question now because now I realized HTF means higher time frame because I'm just an idiot, I guess, and don't realize that acronym. So let me read Stowe's question again. Nick, do you do any work with rolling volume profiles for your higher time frame stuff? No, I really don't, I guess is the easiest way of thinking about it. I don't know. For me, when I look at things from a higher time frame, I also going to probably adjust this too, because one of the things I like to do is also have a kind of visible range one on the right side of my charts that I can continue to kind of adjust based on like I would have loved to actually have this for you guys here tonight too, where it was the visible range and we could look at all of this volume since we're talking about this other balance range up here. But for the most part, I like to use the weeklies really to guide it, just because I guess I take it as, for like, I don't swing trade very often. When I do, it's usually on like a 4-hour time frame. I'm using even much larger volume profile, and I'm doing it with a couple micros, if that. So I like to just see week by week structure to kind of guide, and then use the different weeks, value area highs and value area lows to kind of tell me potentially good entries on the longer time frame, good spots that I could see longer time frame participants buying the dip or reoffering a little bit higher. So that's kind of what I've always had success at least doing. But yeah. Thanks, Brian. Glad you're here. I did really miss doing this show on Sundays, guys. It's a weird time frame. I feel like who wants to stream on their weekend and come on and talk markets and take away the potentially time with friends and family and hang out and everything else. But I like doing this for some reason. It's usually when I'd be sitting at my computer anyway. So it is good to be back. I'm glad I'm able to still have an audience to hang out with, talk markets, keep things casual. I don't take things too crazy and too seriously. I like to have fun and keep my prep light and just have some people hanging out, talking markets, giving me their perspective too. As I said, I am not the greatest trader of all time by any means. I'm just a guy pressing buttons day in and day out and giving you at least a rough perspective of a way to attack the week. That's always what the show has been. It's always just been about, taking an hour, sitting down, just taking a quick zoomed out view. Because all of us that are sitting here day in and day out doing this sometimes on a 1 minute NQ structure, which to some traders probably seems like absolute insanity. Like, how can you gain any alpha or edge trading a 1 minute NQ chart, or be like me who trades 300 to 500 volume and it's like a second by second, wicks of candles. But it's just kind of how we can have fun with it and, just try to find a sense of community and just have a little fun with it here on Sunday night. So I appreciate y'all being here and hanging out. And, hopefully this is the first of many Sunday opens with me here. So very much appreciate everybody being here and hanging out and having a little fun with us. So with that in mind, as I said, just like on ES, NQ, if we lose this area up here that I don't know, whatever you want to call this little low volume node or high volume node here around kind of the 19,300s, 19,200s, I would expect this gap to go get filled. I know a lot of people don't care about these. They tend to still happen day in and day out. When we do gap up in the overnights, I don't love getting long when this is still sitting here. You can call me an idiot for saying that, but I will sit out of more trades while I wait for sellers to potentially go do this, because it's just something always in the back of my mind. It just keeps me out of trades, and I hate futures gaps. So I know they don't always get filled. I know we leave them even through rollover and other things at times, but I like the structure to be cleaned up. That's just the way I am. So yeah, I would expect if we did lose this little high volume edge here that we rotate down and possibly go fill it. But if we get positive headlines, who knows? We're probably off to the races, and everything is fine until it isn't the next tweet. That's really been the last few weeks, hasn't it? It's just there's just too much. There's just too many headlines, and every day it's a new type of reaction to it. So I'll leave it at that. And we'll jump to Crude. I can remember how I had this structured. So I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a great crude trader, but I do every once in a while, when there is volatility events, I do dabble in our sweet black gold here. So maybe one of these days in the afternoon, well, I guess crude closes early sometimes, but one of these days I'm going to throw on the cowboy hat and we're going to trade crude oil or trade lean hogs, maybe some cattle. One of these days, we're going to get back to having some fun and doing something that makes me uncomfortable, which is trading something I barely watch outside of just seeing when larger moves happen. But Crude is kind of coming up to an interesting spot going back to last year. Even we kind of came up to it right here around 65s, which was, if you ever watched my old show going back to like last August, when we were stuck in the crude oil trading range from hell, when it basically was stuck between $65 and $70 for months. And I really didn't have any sort of guidance or edge to give anybody outside of just play the edges. There's not really, and then kind of just know your risk, because when this balance range does finally break, it's probably going to be violent, since we were in it for, I think, almost like 3 months at the time. And then we finally broke out, I think, above like saying 72, retested it, and then we made that run all the way up to, what was it, like 80, 81, 83, whatever the number was. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then the drill baby drill narrative started, and we've been on kind of a multi-month, or I guess like a 2 or 3 month downtrend, and made that low here at 55s. So looking at this now, do we go back up here and retest the bottom of that old balance range that we were in at 65s? Kind of makes a lot of sense. And if we were to fall back into that old range, and I'm talking old, guys, like I know we're the drill, I don't even have data that loaded, so we can't even go back and talk about it. But and I also don't want to break my charts here, because it did take me a lot, the better part of last week to build this, at least on the shorter time frame, long time frame, the way I wanted to. So I don't have all of the whole historical data, because I also don't want to break everything live on stream as we're doing some of this, since these are 1 hour candles. So something else we could look at, or you could take a peek at the old range I'm talking about. But it was basically around here between 65s and this old one up here at 70. And we were stuck in it for months. So what I would love to see is potentially getting back up here towards 65s. Do we retest it? Did we finally break through? In which case, if you looked at this from a very long time frame, do we get back in that multi-month balance where maybe we're rotating between 65s and 70s again? But a lot of this comes down to, I think, narratives, geopolitical stuff. This is also why I sometimes I stay away from crude unless it is in a breakout or uptrend, downtrend, whatever it is. It's just never been my favorite instrument to execute trades on. But looking at this, just seeing that we made that excess low, you did get a good positive reaction on that same day from the good time to buy candle. But for the most part, crude kind of in a little balance range here, drifting upwards. So what I may be looking for, at least on the shorter time frame for this week, is do we get an opportunity to long this somewhere near kind of 62.40s down to probably the 62.20s, and then even maybe a little bit below this value area low from the previous week, something to try longs there, maybe for that trip back up towards the 64s, possibly the 65s, maybe even breaking out of this range. On the short side, if you saw somebody potentially reoffering here around 63.50s, I might be expecting us to potentially go retest a little lower, maybe even back towards the 61.40s kind of area. Yeah, I can see it. If you lost 63s, that's probably where we're going, to be honest, now that I'm kind of looking at this. And that's the other thing too, guys. You're seeing me do a very raw market prep. That's always how I do it. I never try to get too crazy in the weeds and have so much information. You're seeing me kind of not necessarily knee jerk this, but for the most part, taking a raw look coming into the Sunday Open and really just giving you a quick perspective on how I'm kind of anticipating this. And I'm using volume profile most of the time to guide that, with a little bit of MGI and with just a little, I guess, experience and secret sauce that I just have with myself. That's always how I've kind of traded. I use volume and the delta of that volume, let's say, to guide most of my trades. I think volume profile is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to do market prep and even execute on trades. It just really tells you the story of the auction day in and day out, no matter what you're trading. I could throw this on a micro Bitcoin chart and still have a decent idea potentially of good spots to potentially enter long, short, with longer time frame buyers and sellers that are much larger than potentially I am with with a couple micros or minis that I may be throwing around there. So that's always how I've kind of done it, is where are the larger players, where do I see them potentially protecting areas that they were interested in interacting with and where they may exit, or somebody else may try to re-enter at a specific price. So that's the other thing too. As we're going through this, I'm happy to dive into concepts, things that I use if it sparks anyone's interest too. But yeah, that's kind of crude oil here. I'm trying to think. Yeah, maybe breaking out a little bit to go retest that old balance range. We shall see. Does anyone trade crude? I'm curious on our audience here on NT Live. Do we have a lot of active crude traders day in and day out, or are most people trading the indices? I'd be very curious to hear from y'all. Out of these four, what is the one y'all are usually trading? Is it ES, NQ, CL, or GC? I would assume 95% of people are going to say the NASCrack, because that's where the money is, I guess. That's where you can feel alive. Some days you just want to throw on one MNQ just to feel something. I always would say that. Has anyone ever done that? Anyone just throw on a micro in a range day just to feel something? Maybe try to scalp a couple points to buy yourself lunch? I've done that. Crude, yes. Micro GC, I like it. If I was a better man, we're going to jump to gold here, so I can once again tell you this horrifying story. Not horrifying, but the story of the trade that never was. Same thing, same problem with crude. So I can't go back all the way to the night of November 14th, when gold made a near-term low, I guess long time frame low, I guess when we look at this now, but made a low around 25.50s. I guess that would have been on the December contract. So you could go back and look at this yourself. I was in the delivery room. This is just a story so you guys can get a little perspective of who I am, I guess, so you can understand the way my mind works. But I went long a few micro gold in the delivery room while we were not in labor, still waiting for the birth of our first child. And I covered it for about 40 points. It was a very bullish day, or bullish evening in the overnight. Got a very quick move, decided to take the points and run. And if you take a look at the gold chart from the middle of November, you know that we never came back and got anywhere near that price, and have been just marching upward ever since. So that was the swing trade of a lifetime that I probably fumbled, because I ended up covering it because I realized I was doing much more important things and should not be trading anyway during that time. So I covered for a small gain, and we never saw 25.50s ever again for me to enter potentially a micro swing long like I was trying to that night. But yes, Shab, I was long in the delivery room. It's my cross to bear. My daughter's always going to hear that story for the rest of her life. So I don't even want to do the math. It was 4 micro golds. If any, God knows I would not still be holding probably above 3,000 at this point. I would have said that's a hell of a trade and plenty good for me. But my God, I paper handed that in about 2 hours. But yeah, that's me, guys. Daddy was having some fun. Everyone was asleep, or there was no baby yet, but Daddy was trying to just have a little fun and keep himself busy while he was kind of a nervous wreck in the delivery room, still waiting for everything to start it off. So that being said, and I tell you this story not only to see that I'm a trader like everybody else, I guess, but ever since that evening, gold has been on an absolute tear to the upside, and nothing seems to stop it. Every time I think we're going to come back down and retest some of these, older value areas, this older volume, it just continues to amaze me, the bullish narrative behind the uncertainty in, the world economy, whatever it is, the US dollar, whatever macro thesis you want to come up with. But maybe the top could temporarily be in if you believe in the Barron's conspiracy with them putting gold on the cover. Maybe the high is in for now. Maybe we come down and actually test some of these areas. something like 3060 makes a lot of sense when I'm looking back at a lot of structure and a lot of volume coming back towards last month's value area high. But I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to want to be the first idiot to stand in front of an absolute freight train that is gold, especially with the thank you guys behind the scenes. Nick4aTick trades gold in the delivery room and streams on Sundays. Give him some likes. Yeah, that's me. It's my cross to bear, I guess. But as I was saying, do I want to be the first idiot to try to short this for a trip back down to 3,000? No, but looking at the structure of last week with that kind of blow off top move up towards 3,500s and then a move violently back to the downside, I might take that a little seriously and maybe not be looking for longs until probably the 300s, maybe even the 250s before I'm like, all right, let me take that step long again, because that's a little blow off toppy. And when you see things like the Barron's article and I get texts from people saying, should I buy gold? It makes me saying, no, it's probably time for this to cool off a little bit. Am I bearish gold? Absolutely not. Do I potentially see it cooling off and maybe coming back to retest some of these gaps in the volume? 100%. It makes a lot of sense. If you're super bullish gold, that's kind of what you want to see, is us coming back and retesting some of this structure, which has just been absolute insanity to the upside ever since we came back, kind of retested 3,000. It's been off to the races ever since basically the beginning of April. So I would personally love to see gold come back down towards the 3,000s. Do I think it's going to happen this week? No. But could we start seeing some longer time frame sellers taking some profit and moving us back down a little lower? Yeah. Does that make a lot of sense? I think so, but I'm just a guy pressing buttons. So looking at this, you would, if you wanted to try to get long, I mean, you really want to see us building volume above 3350 again. Otherwise, I have no interest in kind of being long. It looks like you had a couple attempts in the later part of last week to kind of break back above 3400s and sellers reoffered. Had another attempt, came back, just missed it. Sellers reoffered violently. And then we kind of came back to basically where we opened last week. And what am I seeing even to start Sunday? Sellers stepping in and at least holding that close. So I could see us rotating back down at least to last week's value area low here, down towards the 3,280s. Last week's lows, not much lower than that. So if you lose this, I would expect us maybe to be on a multi-week path, possibly down to retest some of these levels, maybe even back towards 31,150, kind of the March highs. So hard not to be bullish gold with all the uncertainty going on and the tariff war. I understand the flight to safety that it is, but this is just a parabolic type move, and you would expect it at some point to cool off. I just don't know when it's going to be, but I don't really want to be the first person to long gold up here again. I would rather get along with some sellers, maybe for a rotation back down, and then find some cheaper prices to get long on a longer time frame. But yeah, that is our lovely metals product that we're going to go over tonight. I think platinum was making moves like this too. No, it was platinum. It was silver. Something else I saw recently today this weekend on Twitter that, I don't know, someone posted an interesting chart. And I am totally blanking now, so I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, those are the four. So on this show on Sunday nights, that is kind of the gist of what and how we're going to cover it. I'm going to take you through those four major products that I think a lot of us are trading. We're going to talk about it. Love to hear from people in the chat too. If you completely disagree, if you have an idea, if you have a perspective, you can absolutely feel free to share it, chime in, give me a thought, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm an idiot, whatever the heck you guys want to do. That's kind of the gist. This is just how I'm reading things. And if you've noticed, as we've gone through all this, I'm using the exact same structure of the way I prep for ES, for NQ, that I would do for just about any product. It's all going to be based on market generated information and volume. And then my intraday trades are very much based on volume and the delta of said volume to guide how I'm kind of getting in and out of trades, finding entries. It's all still going to be based on MGI, things like initial balance, things like value area highs, low volume nodes. That's how I trade. If you've seen me and some of the order flow labs guys in the afternoon trading the close, you see we all use similar, I guess, perspectives of volume and market generated information to trade. I think it's one strategy. Is it the greatest strategy? I don't know. Is it the worst strategy? Probably not. I think it's based on a lot of things that are happening day in and day out in the auction. So that is how I prep. But what's awesome about using some of these simple things that realistically can be populated on any charting platform, any system, any time frame is it's super easy and it kind of works because it's just going to tell you the basic information that's going on in the auction. What was last week's value area low? What was last month's value area high? Information that matters on longer time frames can help you still trade and execute on shorter time frames. Maybe not using it to base it on a 30-second chart on NQ, but you're still able to define some areas that make sense for entries long or short. So that's why we use it to do prep on slightly longer time frame than what I use to execute trades day in and day out. But you get at least a better zoomed out view, because sometimes I feel like when you guys may see us on stream or when a lot of us are trading, we use such a microscopic look at the auction that you forget about structure to a longer time frame and where it may make sense in certain environments, certain situations, certain products to sit on your hands and maybe wait for price to possibly approach some of these other spots. That's kind of how I do this. That's kind of how I trade. Can we see the settings for that value indicator? I got that from Order Flow Labs, free indicators, but I don't know what setting is good to use. Which value indicator are you referring to? Are you talking about the volume profile here? That would be my question back. But for the most part, if you're talking about that, I don't want to assume you are, but that's the only, I guess, value one I'd be referring to, I guess. So I don't know I don't know which indicator you're referring to. So if you can help me out, I'm happy to share my settings here, which are still, I will say this too, I'm still rebuilding this chart book a little bit for NinjaTrader for the show. So I'm going to probably still be making some slight adjustments here or there on information, on maybe some other things that we're going to look at, but also we will still have my execution chart readily available so that we can look at things if anything interesting happens during the Globex Open. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it isn't. This looks like a little more of a snooze fest, given all the gap ups and gap downs we've had for the last several weeks of opens. It seems like there's been a lot of violence and trading opportunities, honestly. Not the last couple Sundays, but over the last couple months, a few of these opens have provided some great trades for some people. It's not my cup of tea. You won't see. That's the other thing too. You guys are not going to see me trade because I don't trade at this time. I do my light prep here and we have a little fun, but this is not a profitable time frame for me, for my personal accounts and everything else that I do. So I stay away, but we talk, we have fun, and we will still take a look from the shorter time frame when it makes sense. So yeah, I hope this next one works. Let's see. Can I do this? Is that coming through on stream? Let me take a pause. Looks like it is. So the other part I did not mention when I was coming on the air, because I did a terrible job as your host here tonight to fully preface the show. The other things we will take a peek at, three other things. We're going to look at the economic calendar. We're going to talk a little bit about earnings for our lovely 500 to 1,000 companies that are reporting when it makes sense. We'll talk about the earnings releases. And as I get a little more comfortable with using Mentor Q, one of the things people always loved that I was able to somewhat articulate, because I am still not the greatest mind in the world of options and gamma and every Greek term that exists in our lovely financial markets. but I will still be giving you guys a not a clear perspective, a knee-jerk perspective of what I'm seeing as far as options activity on the larger strikes for the SPX chain and things like that. I'm getting comfortable using Mentor Q. I'm just not there yet where I want to fully misinterpret or articulate how their model is written and what it's kind of saying, because options and gamma is the most confusing and annoying thing at times. So I don't want to misconstrue the information and present it to you guys incorrectly. So next week, I will have that either on a chart for NinjaTrader, or we will look directly at some of their models as they populate. So we can take a look at the entire SPX chain too. So I know people love that I did that in the past. We're going to bring that back. I just don't have it prepared because I'm still learning how to use and understand how Mentor Q has built some of their models. But my hope is I can just throw it on an ES chart, have some of the levels just translate so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like. That is my goal, is just to have it integrated so that I don't have to do the heavy thinking. It'll just show you those levels on the chart and we can talk about it from there. So let's take a peek at the economic calendar for this week. It is a lighter Monday, really just the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index coming in tomorrow morning, right around initial balance period. And these times are all going to be Central Time, the superior time frame the superior time here in the United States. And the only time you'll hear me actually refer to the open and close will still all be on Central Time, because that's just the way I operate. And that's where the CME is. So we're going to just base it on Central Time. If you have a problem with that, take it up with Leo himself, because I agreed with his perspective when he told me that one time. On Tuesday, we will have JOLTS, which I would expect to be a bit of a market mover. It has been the last few times it's been released. I don't even know anymore, guys, if bad news is good news, if good news is bad news, or if good news is good news anymore. It just, every release pre-market, it seems to matter, and then the next one doesn't matter, and then I just get confused. And that's why I don't trade news and earnings and things. Just more things to take paper cuts. On Wednesday is going to be the big ones to be paying attention to versus everything else. We do have GDP quarter over quarter, as well as the Fed's favorite flavor of inflation, core PCE. So if you do trade, these releases, you're possibly an insane person. Good for you. I know a lot of people love to do it and make money. I like to just know when to not be in trades, or if I am still in a trade after the bell or after the New York Open, to just know when these are on the docket so that I know when to hit flatten or lighten up or just get out of a trade, so that I don't get absolutely stop run when some of these things just hit the wires. If you remember, there's been a few times where something you wouldn't expect, like the Michigan consumer sentiment, can just absolutely just wallop everybody, and NQ's down 200 points, and everyone's blaming their trading platform when they don't understand the way the system actually kind of works when there's no orders on the books. On Thursday, we have initial jobless claims followed by ISM manufacturing PMI. And then Friday, to round us out, we do have non-farm payroll and the unemployment rate. So nothing too crazy. The biggest one, like I said, is going to be the core PCE on Wednesday. But for the most part, if you trade the RTH Open, if you trade pre-market, these are nothing new, nothing you should be too surprised about, but they will always potentially stop you out on trades. So I just always recommend be flat during these releases. It's just not the safest time to be trading. There's plenty of opportunities throughout the week. You don't need to trade news and data releases, but that's just me. You guys will do what you will, as you always do. So we'll leave it there. All right. To round us out here, Sunday night, if you've been living under a rock, it is the Super Bowl of earnings week as far as single stock options and the Mag 7 releases. If you did not know, roughly 40% of the S&P 500, as far as the market caps, are actually reporting this week. And basically that is just basically 4 companies. But if you're a single stock options trader and you love to be crushed by theta, this is your Super Bowl week. Obviously, you have the elephants in the room being Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and everyone's favorite savior for some reason, Tim Apple on Thursday, to save us potentially from any volatility or any downside. Apple just always seems to come in on Thursday of their earnings release and sometimes just cleans up the garbage that was this trading week, any sort of downside weakness, whatever. Sometimes it just gets magically saved by Apple. I don't know if that's going to happen this week, but these would be the biggest four that I'd be paying attention to, and all of them being after the close, and all of them will provide a very volatile after hours portion of the close. I still get in debates with people, when futures technically closes, when does it matter that it closes? Is it the actual cash close at 3 p.m. Central Time, or is it 4 p.m.? But yeah, if you're trading NQ, this is two of the wildest after hours periods for futures that you could ever imagine. And then going into the opens shortly after on Wednesday and Thursday, it just is an absolute just chaos to watch those trading opportunities. So yeah, the other ones to be paying attention to, I'm curious to see how Robinhood reports. Robinhood, being just another, trading platform that everybody seems to use, is launched futures, did a bunch of new things. I think a lot of people are still executing trades on them. I'm always curious to hear how they're doing, since they just handle so much of retail trading these days. It's always interesting to hear their perspective too. Trying to think what else. Any other majors that stood out to me? Obviously Visa, Snapchat, Starbucks. Yeah, those are kind of the ones I'm watching. Atlassian would be interesting too for our lovely friends in the tech sector and software. But yeah, that's the gist. The gotchas, as I said, Mag 7, 4 of the 7 reporting this week. And then we will be waiting for a few weeks until our Lord and Savior, NVIDIA, comes back into the fold and reports their earnings, which should be very interesting as well. Let me jump back to my chart. Hopefully that works. There we go. All right. So we will be doing potentially questions here. We'll maybe have an open forum in the future, but I'm going to do a quick recap of the ES prep, and then I'll let you all get out of here and get back to better things on your Sunday. So as I was saying at the early parts of tonight's show, we are sitting at the tippy top of that balance range, going back to Liberation Day and the good time to buy day. So for me, this is kind of a hands-off spot. I don't really have any interest in initiating right here. If we do get any sort of reoffer, I think Leo was talking about this on Thursday with Stowe, but if you do anything with these kind of balance ranges, if we really do get a reoffer up here, or there is a longer time frame seller that pushes us back in here with force, I mean, yeah, we're going to go fill the gap, but then you got to be wondering, do we go rotate to the other side of this value, possibly down towards 5,000s? Probably not going to happen this week, but over the next couple of weeks, if we lose and fall back into this range, that's just something I'm watching. Now, to the upside, if we do continue to get a good volume build above 5,500s, 5,550s, and kind of can clear this, I want to see if there is any sort of reaction up here towards the April open, as well as basically 5,600 on SPX, which also just kind of lines up with the bottom edge of this old balance range from kind of where that old low was, going back to the violence in middle of July, and everyone was calling the bottom. There were memes going around of a butt, and we're just going to leave it there. That was in the shape of a fruit. So we're just going to say everyone there was wrong, obviously calling that bottom, but that was kind of the initial spot that at least we got a passive rebid before someone large came in, and then we had Liberation Day and everything else. So I want to see, do we get any sort of responsive bid in this general area? Coming up toward 56.25s is a spot I'm watching. As I said, I'm going to do just a rough weekly pivot that I'm going to kind of use to just gauge my bias a little more and keep me honest. So I want to see what happens. I'm not saying I'm long and I'm shorting here and I'm long above it. This is more, when I say my pivots, it's more what happens if price actually returns to this area. So that's the gist. That's the prep. That's the idea. I appreciate everybody for being here. Let me see if there's any questions. Nick, do you trade prop or only live? If both, what are some of the differences you notice when trading prop versus personal capital? Thanks. Yeah, so I'm sure like a lot of traders out there, at least in the streaming space more than anything else. I trade both. I trade a cash account, I trade an options account, and I do trade props too. It's a good way to, honest to God, kind of gain more leverage with minimal risk to your personal capital. If you didn't know my full story, guys, I traded my own money for a very long time, got laid off, and decided to keep my nest egg kind of hunkered down as I was looking for a new job. So I used props to kind of continue to gain experience trading, gain an understanding, and have less capital at risk. Still was getting able to trade, to make passive income, pay my bills, survive the unemployment cycle that I was kind of in. And then everything kind of clicked at the same time, and I was having success. I was able to really fund my personal account and continue to grow it, have more success. And now I do this full time. So the biggest difference is you're trading in a live environment versus a sim environment. So fills are very unrealistic. If you're trading in sim, the speed of the tape's a little different. I think a lot of people say things like that. I also think you just may not take it as seriously if you're trading prop versus your own capital. Something about it feels a little more real when it's really your money. So I think there's nothing wrong with using the many good props that are out there, just to trade safe, not feel like you're putting a ton of capital at risk, but also learn, because you could throw 10 grand into a personal account and lose it in a session or two if you don't know what you're doing. But if your investment is small and you're trading in sim and you're practicing, you're learning strategies, and you're trying to become a more effective trader and deal with the mental side too, because I feel like it's a good way to learn how to deal with the up days, the down days, by trading some capital too. So if you can do both, I would say there's nothing wrong with that. If you're still learning, if you're still early in this game, there's nothing wrong with executing, using those sim prop accounts to try to make a little money while also still gaining the experience you need to then trade your own personal capital too. So that's kind of how I do it. All right. So I very much appreciate everybody hanging out with the inaugural edition of the Sunday Open here on NinjaTrader Live with me, Nick. Hopefully this is the first of many, many shows and on Sunday nights with you guys. I had a lot of fun. I hope this has provided some level of entertainment or value for your trading week. I know we took a quick picture of ES, NQ, GC, CL. That's what we're going to do every week. We're going to talk about earnings. We're going to answer some questions if there are any throughout the engagement on Sundays here. But my last piece of, my last ask of you all is to take it slow this week, trade safe, be smart. I think this is a weird spot the market is kind of in, at least in the ES and NQ world with our indices. It is a week where maybe we're waiting on a headline, maybe we're waiting for Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, and Meta to report. So we could very much kind of be range bound at the top edge of this balance range. I don't know. I just don't. This is not my favorite week to trade, is Mag 7 earnings week as it is, and given where we are. We kind of closed last week being at a decision point. It's a good week to start slow. Just see what the market wants to tell us in the early parts of this week. So thank you all for being here. If you have not hit like and subscribe, I would very much appreciate it. It shows you're supporting this new show. You're supporting the stream. You're supporting NinjaTrader. So please hit that thumbs up button before we get out of here tonight. I've had an awesome time with you guys. It's good to be back. I look forward to many, many, many more of these on Sunday evenings with y'all. So have a good night. Spend some time with your family. Spend some time away from the screens. Have a little fun this week. Everyone trade safe. And I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon to trade the close with Mr. Leo the Tiger himself. So cheers. Have a good night.